Hi kids, and welcome to Disney Animation Reviews. I'm Josiah Milky, your host for the show. My sister Jordan is taking a couple weeks off, so it's just going to be me for the next couple movies. Today we're talking about Walt Disney's third animated feature film, Fantasia. But first, a little history. During production on Snow White and Pinocchio, Walt Disney Studio continued to make animated short films. Yes, Walt Disney Studio continued to make animated short films, even while they were still working on their feature films like Snow White and Pinocchio. Some of their other animated shorts during the late 30s, early 40s included The Old Mill, which was the first animated Disney short to use the multiplane camera, the Mickey Mouse short, Brave Little Tailor, and a couple of Oscar winners. Ferdinand the Bull, which is now a computer animated film from Blue Sky Studios that came out last year, and The Ugly Duckling, which later played a key role in Lilo and Stitch. In 1936, while still working on Snow White, and pretty close to start working on Pinocchio, and for sure when he started working on Bambi, Walt Disney started to realize that Mickey Mouse, his most popular cartoon character, was starting to fade in popularity. So Walt decided to do a short film starring Mickey that would boost back his popularity. He decided to do something that wasn't nearly as slapsticky as Mickey's other shorts, and he felt he had that with The Sorcerer's Apprentice, where Mickey plays the title character and tries to use magic before mastering it properly. As the next few years passed while they were working on the short, production costs started to rise, and they ultimately decided Mickey couldn't sustain enough money just from that one short, and that it was going to cost way too much money for a short film. So, Walt met with conductor Leopold Stokowski and decided to pair The Sorcerer's Apprentice with a whole bunch of other animated shorts in what he called the concert feature. I think we're all very happy to know that he ultimately changed it to Fantasia. Disney and Stokowski started working on the film along with Disney's artists and Stokowski's orchestra, the Philadelphia Symphony Orchestra, in 1938, right around the time Snow White had gotten its release. The film took about 2 years to make, and it was first released in fall of 1940. Although honored with 2 honorary Academy Awards, one to Walt Disney and his team for their advancement in sound, and the other for Stokowski and his orchestra for their musical contributions, due to the cutoff of World War II and how expensive it was to use Fantasound, the sound system they used for this film, in theaters, Fantasia ultimately did not turn a profit in its original theatrical release. Thanks to reissues, it's done better, but back then, not everybody could appreciate a movie that was just art and music. To be honest, I actually think the sequel, Fantasia 2000, is better than the original Fantasia because the segments are more easy to follow and it's not as long as the first movie, because the original Fantasia is Disney's longest animated feature film to date at 2 hours. And actually the original run was even a little longer than that. But I understand there are quite a few people who do appreciate the original Fantasia for the risk Disney was taking. So, here is the story of Fantasia, or at least the story of the segments in Fantasia. So, there's really no dialogue in this film other than a few interstitial segments with the host of the film, their master of ceremonies, if you will, Deems Taylor. In later home video releases, Taylor's audio was a little outdated, so his narration was redone by Disney voice actor Corey Burton. He introduces the movie and tells us what kind of music we'll be hearing, and then they actually get down to the different segments. The first segment is Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach, which shows the musicians as they play their instruments, and then it ultimately turns into abstract paintings. I kind of like getting to see the musicians perform. I was just at a band concert that my little sister was performing in, and they actually did some Disney music, so I know bands. I've been in band myself, so I guess this was a nice way to start the film. The second segment is The Nutcracker Suite by Tchaikovsky, but rather than do a literal retelling of the Nutcracker story, They instead have dancing mushrooms, dancing flowers, dancing whatever, and they have a bunch of fairies changing the seasons as the music plays. The fairies changing the seasons served as a precursor for the direct-to-DVD Tinkerbell films that Disney Toon Studios produced later in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Next, we have the most popular segment in Fantasia, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, starring Mickey Mouse, where he is the titular sorcerer's apprentice who wants to be magic like his master, and tries to use magic to finish his chores, but ultimately ends up causing more harm than help. Sorcerer's Apprentice has gone on to be one of Mickey's most famous segments, right up there with Brave Little Tailor and his first cartoon, Steamboat Willie. And Sorcerer's Apprentice, I am going to go outright and say it's my personal favorite segment, and my personal favorite of the Mickey shorts that I've seen. An interesting trivia note, the animators named the sorcerer Yen Sid, which is Disney spelled backwards. How cool is that? The fourth segment is the longest segment at like 25 minutes. It's Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, which shows the evolution of Earth, leading all the way to the rise and extinction of the dinosaurs. Because it's so long, this is one that nearly bores me to death. Really, the only exciting part is the actual dinosaur battle and what caused their extinction. Afterwards, we get an intermission where we get to meet the soundtrack, which is a straight line that makes the sounds of different types of instruments. Then, when the concert resumes, we get our next segment, the Pastoral Symphony by Beethoven. A precursor to Disney's Hercules, this was their first time doing Greek mythology. All the gods and Pegasuses and centaurs gather together for a festival to celebrate Bacchus, the god of wine. They have a great time until Zeus, the biggest god of all, disrupts their fun with his thunder and lightning bolts. I thought this segment was pretty cute, although people who know Fantasia might recognize and should probably be forewarned that in later home video releases, they completely recolored or cut out a black centaur red because people accused the Disney studio of being racist because that one centaur rat looked too African American. That's probably about all. The rest of the segment is pretty good. The next segment is probably my second favorite segment behind Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's Ponchielli's Dance of the Hours, featuring a bunch of dancing hippos, ostriches, alligators, and elephants, all dancing together, and the alligator leader tries to woo the hippo leader, and it actually turns into a fun little musical romp. And then the last segment is actually two songs, Nine on Bald Mountain by Mussorgsky, and Ave Maria by Franz Schubert. Nine on Bald Mountain is the scariest segment of the bunch, where Chernabog, the devil, unleashes his minions on an unsuspecting town and actually sends all his victims into hell. So just be forewarned, that might be a little scary for the kids. And then the segment that follows is Ave Maria, which depicts a choir at nighttime carrying torches to a cemetery to honor those that were killed in the Nine on Bald Mountain sequence. Like I said, at 2 hours, Fantasia is Disney's longest animated film in the canon, and it's actually a little too long for my taste. Like I said, there are some good segments, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Dance of the Hours, and Nine on Bald Mountain is pretty good if you can handle the scariness. Nutcracker is cute, with the fairies changing the seasons and the dancing mushrooms and everything, but everything else is either too long or too boring for my liking. I appreciate what Disney was taking with this film, the risks they were taking, but I think the problem that everybody gets wrong with this film is that they think it's just a film. It's actually an art show and a concert mixed together, as my good friend Rachel Wagner would say. Rachel Wagner is the one who has been doing the Disney animation reviews on her blog and on YouTube. She did that a couple years back, so I have her to thank for inspiring me for doing this series. So, yeah, Rachel says Fantasia is a concert film. Like I said, it's an art show and a concert all rolled into one. It's not a full-fledged film. Fantasia was actually the first of what many in the Disney studio would call package films. That means they comprise individual segments that don't relate to one another into one constructive narrative. Package films would be a staple of the Disney studio during most of the 1940s due to World War II cutting off the European market. Disney was cut off by the European market during World War II, and that's why a lot of their early films suffered. So that's why during most of the 40s they had to do package films to keep costs down. Once the package films in the late 40s proved successful, Disney had the chance to go on and go back to producing full feature films in the 50s, but that's another story for later in the canon. So yeah, over and all, Fantasia is not my favorite animated Disney film, just because it's not like a full-fledged Disney film. But again, I appreciate the risks they're taking, and like I said, it's not really a film, it's a concert and an art show together, so I still appreciate what Disney was trying to do. It's just not everybody could appreciate what Disney was trying to do, so that's why it suffered the first go-around. But if you want something different from the Disney canon, I guess Fantasia isn't a complete waste of time. So let's talk about Fantasia's home video release and how this franchise grew over time. Fantasia's latest home video release was its 70th anniversary Blu-ray and DVD release with its sequel, Fantasia 2000, in fall of 2010. Most features carried over from the original 2060th anniversary edition DVD release are 2 audio commentaries, and then the Blu-ray adds a 3rd audio commentary, an art gallery, and a couple featurettes. One's a notebook feature that focuses on the special effects they used in making this film. The other is a tour of the Walt Disney Family Museum. The Blu-ray is also a combo pack that includes a DVD copy that includes the new 3rd audio commentary recorded for the Blu-ray and the Disney Family Museum featurette. They also have Fantasia 2000 in there. Like I said, it's a 2-pack, but we'll get to Fantasia 2000's bonus features when we get to that film. So how did this franchise grow over time? Walt had actually wanted to continue experimenting with Fantasia by having it be re-released every couple years, and they would always have new segments in place of the old ones. But when Fantasia bombed at the box office in its first run, that idea fell by the wayside until 50 years later when Walt's nephew, Roy Disney, came up with the sequel, Fantasia 2000. 60 years later, after the original Fantasia, Fantasia 2000 got released and was the result of what Walt had originally wanted. Fantasia 2000, of course, comes up much later in the countdown, so we'll talk more about that when we get to that film. They also, after Fantasia 2000, were going to do a Fantasia 2006 with some new shorts that you might have seen on home video releases of other Disney films. Those shorts were actually used on those other Disney projects when Fantasia 2006 ultimately got canceled. I'll talk more about that when we get to Fantasia 2000. So, recap on the original Fantasia. Like I said, I appreciate what Disney was trying to do by doing something different. It's just a lot of the segments are too long and too boring for my liking. And there are, like I said, there are some good ones. Kids will definitely enjoy Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse and Dance of the Hours. Night on Bald Mountain, with its scariness, is something new and different for Disney. But everything else is just kinda, well... Bottom line, I don't really like the original Fantasia for being too long and too boring in some scenes. The parts that I said were good are still actually really good. If you do let me say this. If you do decide to watch it with your kids, I would say let's take it in just take it in sections. You don't have to watch all the segments together. Maybe just watch like a segment per day. If there's anything your kids find disturbing or different that you don't, maybe you could talk to your kids about that, especially with the Night on Bald Mountain thing with the devil and whatnot. That might be something to discuss. But, yeah, don't watch the whole movie all at once if you have little kids. But they'll definitely enjoy the segments that I said were good. Like I said, Sorcerer's Apprentice helped bring Mickey Mouse back into the spotlight. It's just Fantasia didn't quite become the success Walt wanted when it first came out. It did better, but still. So that's my thoughts on Fantasia. Like I said, I appreciate what they were trying to do. It's just I prefer the sequel more. But we'll get to that when we get to that film. For now, if you do want to watch the original Fantasia, go right ahead. But take it in sections if you have little kids, because I don't think they'll sit for a whole 2-hour movie if they're really little. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, remember, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Bye!